Well, let's speak now to the former Conservative Shadow Home Secretary, David Davis, who's had concerns in the past about the bill. Hello.
Hello.
Have you still got concerns?
Yes, I'm afraid so. The government said in its press release last night, before putting out this multi-hundred-page document, that it had taken on board the majority of the concerns. Well, technically, I suppose that's right, because there are about 100 criticisms, and it's absorbed a lot of the minor ones, but the major ones it's broadly ignored. And there are parts of the bill which both the Intelligence and Security Committee, which is a classified committee, it does everything in secret, and the Joint Committee that reviewed the bill said should be struck out, like things called bulk personal data sets. That's the government keeping data on you and me of vast amounts of government data, everything from your electoral register, which is public, through to travel records and so on. So there are a whole series of things which should have been dealt with and haven't been dealt with yet. No doubt will be when we come to the House of Commons.
Yeah, but when we talk about travel records, what the police will say is if they're looking at, I don't know, say somebody like a drug trafficker, they can't look at perhaps their travel records to try and see their movements recently. They can't look at their bank records to try and find out the way they've moved money around, and that's making their job very difficult.
Well, why can't they? I mean, the argument here is not that the police or the agencies or indeed other parts of government should not be able to look at the records and track and bug and intercept terrorists, drug traffickers, you name it, on a targeted basis. That's what they should be doing, and that's what we want them to do, and we want them to have those powers. What we shouldn't extend that to is actually having those same powers for everybody, no matter how innocent they are. It's turning the whole country into a country of suspects, and it doesn't work. If you look at all the analyses of the big terrorist events where the agencies went wrong, whether it's 9/11 or 7/7 and so on, what you find is not they didn't have enough information. You find they didn't use the information properly. They didn't share it with the right people. They didn't send it to the right people. And the more information you have, the more you get overwhelmed, and that's part of the problem. They haven't really made the argument for doing some of this stuff, as against using targeted intercepts and targeted information gathering. Indeed, every single example that the Home Secretary presented to the Joint Committee as to why they wanted these powers was actually a targeted example. It wasn't a bulk collection of data. So that's why people like me think, we can do this right without interfering with your privacy or everybody else's privacy. We do it by targeting the people we need to keep an eye on.
There are those who say, I'm not bothered if you have a look at what I've written. I've done nothing wrong. You can look at my browsing history if you like. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Well, that's fine. But as we had an argument yesterday, the Prime Minister won't even let ministers see some of his own documentation. So clearly it doesn't apply across the board. People do find times when they want to do things privately and don't want other people to know about them. It's an important part of the maintenance of free speech that you can have privacy. And that's a huge tradition in this country, which most other countries don't have. So fine, if somebody wants to give up their own privacy, fine, but they can't give it up for everybody else. It's an individual right, and quite properly protected. And one of the reasons we're a great nation with a great tradition of freedom is because we've actually respected that down the centuries, and we shouldn't stop doing so now, because to do so is actually to give a victory to the terrorists without firing a shot. So
you're not convinced by any of the safeguards whatsoever that, for example, there needs to be a warrant from the Home Secretary to look at the content of emails, and that can be vetoed by the Investigatory Powers Commission. There's a double lock on interception warrants.
Some of it's okay, some of it's not.
Yeah, right.
All right. Let me tell you very quickly why the problem with the Home Secretary approval of warrants. She has something like 2,500 a year to look at. That's 10 a working day. One of these warrants would take a judge normally about 90 minutes to go through, check, look at the details and so on. There's no way she can do that. So just in practical terms, it's impossible. Secondly, they have the judge so-called double lock. Actually, the judge is just looking to make sure the Home Secretary hasn't taken leave of her senses. It's a so-called judicial review criteria. So it's a rubber stamp on a rubber stamp. There are better ways of doing this. Other countries do it in better ways. Other Five Eyes countries, all the sort of English-speaking countries, do it in better ways. We should have taken one of their methods rather than our old-fashioned methods. OK, and just a quick word about the timing of all this, because the powers, of course, expire this year. But that's one of your main concerns, isn't it, that it's being rushed through? But, yes.
But again, the government are stuck into this time frame, aren't they?
Well, they created that time frame themselves. They would have done better to take time in the first place to get it right. What they should do is actually put through a short bill to deal with the the so-called sunset clause comes up at the end of the year, and take more time over getting the rest of it right. Every time a government rushes a bill through, there's a reason to be a bit suspicious. The reason they're rushing this one through is when they took time last time, the last Snoopers Charter, it was cut to ribbons by the committee that they appointed to look at it because they hadn't done their homework properly. Same is true here, I'm afraid.
All right, David Davis, thank you very much indeed.